Hey, everybody. It's Matt, it's Jim, and it is Friday, which means that we got nothing but football to talk about. And we got a bunch of people already lined up to talk with us. Matthew, I know you're excited. There's a lot of good football tomorrow. Two games that actually involve schools that we're involved in some big games tomorrow. So we'll get right to it. Mike's got a question for us. Go ahead. Let's see. I told you a couple days ago to watch USF. Now we're going to headline with them. Now you're going to headline them. He's taking them, and by the spread is like 17 points, I believe. So
17 and a half last I saw.
is
Yeah.
that okay? I think that's a little. I think there's a little high, but
Yeah. It's
so go ahead.
it's gonna be an interesting weekend where you kind of get a better feel of what USF really is because they're not sneaking up on Miami.
Right.
I wouldn't say that they snuck up on USF. I would say that they kind of snuck up on Florida, who may have had their sights set on a trip to Baton Rouge this weekend. But Miami's got a sole goal now, and that sole goal is going to be the University of South Florida, who does have to go to Hard Rock Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And you can argue whether or not Miami really does have a true home atmosphere. They do every time they play Notre Dame, but that seems to be about it.
Right.
So it's going to be a test of they're not going to surprise Miami. Miami is by all accounts and measures the more talented football team.
Mm-hmm.
Along both lines of scrimmage, that they're just better. You can make the argument that quarterback play may be a little bit even with
Mm-hmm.
USS Byron Brown, I believe is his name. I could be a little
Yeah,
off there.
Byram.
Byram, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're
so he,
close.
and he's fantastic in his own respect, but the fact of the matter is that you're still a non P4 school that definitely can't recruit with the likes of Miami. So how have you built your team? Has your transfer portal acquisitions, are they all going to gel? They've looked good so far. This is a different test coming on Saturday for USF.
This is hard for me to say, okay? And I say that because I like Mario Cristobal. He will make bonehead calls during the course of football games.
Yes.
It will be up to USF to take advantage of his bonehead calls. And I think here's the problem, and Matt, you know this as well as I do. The problem with a lot of this is that the 11 on 11 USF and Miami, I don't think are that different. But it's the depth. Okay. Miami can run 5, 6, 7 offensive and defensive linemen in and out of the game, keeping people fresh. They got running backs. They got, they don't need quarterback. They got the quarterback. But I think that's the key. To me, if it's going to be tough, I'm not saying that South Florida is going to win. I think it will be close if, and this is a big if Todd Orlando's defense can play. If they can play up to the category that they played against Florida, and Florida made mistakes, no question about it. Miami will make mistakes. Okay. Florida, God knows USF will make mistakes. Will Miami make a mistake at a time that will be beneficial to USF? That in my mind will be the thing. I mean, it's everything when you're a non P5 school, right? You got to take advantage of mistakes and you got to not make mistakes. That's a lot to ask, but I will say that Golish has got him. I believe Golish is a better coach than Mario. Okay. Not a better recruiter, doesn't have better talent, but he's a better coach.
Yeah. Yeah, on game day. I will say, and Jim, I know that gambling's not really your thing.
No, but
But
that doesn't mean that I don't pay attention to it.
yeah, but this week is the week of public underdogs,
Mm-hmm.
and public underdogs have a tendency to not fare well. But you look at the Clemson Georgia Tech game, that line opened up over a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
It's down well below a touchdown. I think it's in the 3.5 to 4.5 range now.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Georgia, Tennessee. That game opened up over a touchdown and it's back down. but USF's also a big public play this week, and that line hasn't moved, which would concern me a little bit if I was, if I was rooting for USF on Saturday. It would concern me that there hasn't been a lot of movement on that line for what people to feel like the general public feels like is a very large line. It probably means that you're getting some sharp action on the other side of it, causing it not to move, which generally gives you pause for concern when it comes to potential upsets.
I'm not picking them to upset. I just don't think it's going to be. I don't think they're going to get blown out. That's what I'm saying. We got plenty of games we'll talk about. Noon games. Clemson. You just mentioned this one. Clemson at Georgia Tech. I agree with you about Georgia Tech. I believe Georgia Tech's a much better football team than a lot of folks seem to give them credit for.
Yeah, they're really talented. I think they may have, and I'm not calling this a quarterback controversy whatsoever, but Aaron Philo I think he threw for over 350 yards last week. Now, granted, I couldn't tell you who he threw it against because I just saw that Georgia Tech was beating him. It was a no-name school, and I kept it moving. But Aaron Philo played really well, and it's going to come down to, I think when it comes down to a quarterback decision this week, Tech's probably going to go with Haynes King. But if they feel like they have a better pass blocking, like their chances are better through the air to beat Clemson, then you're going to see Aaron Philo in this football game. If they feel like their chances to beat Clemson are better on the ground, then Haynes King is going to be the quarterback in this football game. And Clemson showed some holes when it came to rush defense, not only against LSU, but against Troy as well. And Georgia Tech has a very complex running system. You have to be extremely eye disciplined when you play against Georgia Tech because the triple option's gone, but they've got a lot of midline quarterback reads and read options and triple options still built into that system. And Buster Faulkner does a great job at finding your weakness, exposing it, and making you play in space. And we're going to see that if Clemson doesn't match up from a speed profile with Georgia Tech on the edge, it's going to be a long day for them in the flats.
We got Alabama and Wisconsin playing at noon on ABC. That's going to be an interesting game. Wisconsin's defense is pretty good. I honestly have no way of gauging what Alabama can do. I'm sorry. It just seems I don't know. I mean, this one is can be intriguing, and it's at Wisconsin, right?
At Alabama.
Oh, is okay?
This one's at Alabama.
That would have changed my mind about this game.
Yeah,
it's a lot more tough for Wisconsin to come to Alabama and play a tough game. But
the back end of a home and home series. They played the first half at Wisconsin.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so I don't know. It's an interesting game to me. It's key. I think it's a key game for Alabama to prove that. If Alabama fell out of the top 20, which is what will happen if they lost to Wisconsin, God knows what's going to happen down there in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, and this is apparently Kalen DeBoer's nightmare since he's been in Alabama. It's an unranked football team that Alabama has to play. Unranked P4 opponent.
Right.
And he's not doing well. Florida State, he lost. Oklahoma, he lost last year.
Right.
Vanderbilt, he lost last year. There's one other that I'm forgetting right off the top of my head. But he's not fared well against these unranked Power 4 opponents. Wisconsin, they're favored by 21. Can he get the monkey kind of off? It sounds weird to say, can he get the monkey off his back when talking about a team that he's favored by 3 touchdowns over?
Well, it's funny because last year he was only 7 points ahead of USF going into the fourth quarter. Now, that's where we saw what we just talked about, where depth comes through. But you're at home at Tuscaloosa and you're down. You're up 7 points on South Florida. That's thought. That brings pause to Bama fans who normally at halftime that score would have been 37-0. Normally.
And I wonder because what Nick Saban did so well at Alabama and how they were able to sustain the level of success they were able to sustain was their ability to focus on every opponent and stay disciplined and focus on the task ahead. And people will tell you around that Alabama program, you see people talking. Feels like there's a million examples right now of talking points talking about how much different it is under Kalen DeBoer than it was under Nick Saban. And obviously, like, these games are opponents that, yeah, you may be favored then, and you may have a better talent roster, but guess what? You're not ready to play on Saturday. They came ready because you're still Alabama, and they still see that Saban target on your back, and they want to come beat you. And they've let them come beat them because they've gone with the attitude that when they roll that Crimson A out on the football field, people will shudder in fear and play a worse brand of football. But people have been playing their best brands of football, and Alabama's been bringing their at best C- game against these types of opponents lately.
Absolutely. This one is your game, I would think, coming up, the afternoon games. We have a quick question before we get into that. And it has to do with Kyle Malloy. Okay, Kyle. USC and Purdue. Will USC be able to get past Purdue? I like USC. I mean, I'm not liking them for a national championship, but the offense at USC scores a lot of points, and I really think this is a USC team that will be better overall than last year. I don't think Purdue's going to be able to hang with them.
No, in the nicest way possible to Kyle, but has you watched Purdue play football? They're not a good football team. They weren't a good football team last year. They're not a good football team this year. So I'm not sure when they will be a good football team again. You know,
it's not gonna be Saturday.
No, it's not gonna magically all click into place. No, Purdue's gonna be in for a long afternoon on Saturday.
Okay, my friend, as the Georgia savant, number 6 Georgia, number 15 Tennessee, 3:30 ABC national audience.
Yeah. You know, I think this game being played at 3:30, there's a small advantage for Georgia in the fact that it's not a night game. There's just something about it. There's an energy shift when a game's at night versus when it's at 3:30. It doesn't take away from what your atmosphere can be, but there's just a little something different about a night game. So I think Georgia lucked out there in terms of that scheduling dynamic. But I go back to both of these teams haven't really been tested. And I know people will point to Tennessee's schedule and say, well, they played Syracuse. Well, Syracuse took OT to beat, UConn last week. And I don't know if anybody's paid attention to UConn football. They haven't been very good for a very long time. Now they're better. Jim Moore has done a pretty good job relative to what UConn is.
Right.
But they're still not a great football team. And Syracuse's defense isn't very good, and their offense is meh at best. That Tennessee defense gave up 26 to them. But what it really comes down to is there's two key injuries for both teams in the same position group. For Tennessee, they're missing Ricky Gibson and Jermod McCoy. I think Jermod McCoy was an All-American about a year ago, but he tore his ACL on the back end of last year. And Ricky Gibson got hurt week 1 against Syracuse, and he's still dealing with that. Both of them have been ruled out for this football game. Those are both big hits to the back end of that Tennessee defense. And on the Georgia side of things, the entire right side of the offensive line, Juan Gaston and Ernest Green. Gaston is the starting right guard coming into the season. He suffered an injury week 1. Ernest Green was the starting right tackle. He suffered an injury week 1. Both of them didn't play last week against Austin Peay. They have an argument to be, the two best linemen on that Georgia front. Juan Gaston is incredibly physical. I mean, you turn on that tape from when he was playing week 1, and I mean, he's just mowing dudes off the line. Again, it's Marshall, but he was mowing dudes off the line. And I don't care who you are, it's hard to line up and just absolutely beat somebody in every time you're in the football game. And both of them seem Ernest Green was listed as probable on the injury report. And per Kirby Smart's son and some Instagram comments, Juan Gaston's going to play. Take that with a grain of salt.
Take it for right now, yeah.
Yeah, from I think 14-year-old Andrew Smart. But
soon to be offensive coordinator.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, if both of those linemen are healthy, it changes Georgia's run game, and the run
Mhm,
game is where this game's going to be won and lost. It sounds
mhm,
cliche, and I say it feels like every time when I talk about teams and when I'm picking them to win, but physicality up front, those guys bring a different level of physicality for Georgia on the offensive front, and will open up some different kind of running lanes for Georgia in the offense that may bring them some opportunities downfield for Gunnar Stockton to hit on that weaker
mhm,
secondary for Tennessee. And in terms of Tennessee, the reason that people are so confident in this game is because they've done a lot of talking. They've had teams that they felt like could beat Georgia, but the matter of the fact is that they didn't have the physicality up front to match with a Kirby Smart defensive line and offensive line. They just couldn't compete. You go back and you watch Josh Heupel's press conferences coming into this game for the 4 years that he's been there prior to this, and that's what he talks about. He talks about needing to win the line of scrimmage every single time. There's a little different tune this week because he knows that he has fronts that can match the physicality, or at least come close to matching the physicality up front, and he has a trigger man at quarterback that can hit the deep balls,
mhm.
make those explosive plays.
Well, next up, I mean, we've already talked about it. Miami and South Florida. Uh, one interesting little tidbit, and that is if the Miami versus South Florida game draws more than 1.3 million people at 4:30 on the CW network, they will break the record of the highest rated sports event on the CW. Now, it's only been 3 years that the CW has been doing sports, but, not for nothing. It'd be a very interesting little tidbit to have. I would think that two teams in the top 20 could draw more than 1.3 million people. So I think that that's a good shot. They're up against, by the way, one quick thing before we get away from the Tennessee Georgia thing. Um, from my own personal opinion, and I know that everything's subjective, if you have a chance on your stadium bucket lists, these two stadiums, you know, the one, of course, in Athens, Georgia, that you are very familiar with, the Hedges, and Neyland Stadium, which is on the river there in Knoxville. Those are two stadiums you definitely want to put on your list to go to. The atmosphere is fantastic. The tailgating, everything about college football at these two stadiums is primo. So circle both of those stadiums on your bucket list if you haven't been.
That's what I will say it, and this is jumping ahead a couple weeks here.
Mhm,
But man, that Bama game that's scheduled at night here, I am looking forward to that because, like I said earlier, night atmospheres are different,
mhm.
especially against an opponent that everybody in Athens, Georgia hates. In Alabama, boy, that place is going to be insane.
Yep. And it's so much fun if you're, well, I don't like hearing Rocky Top a lot, but if you go to Tennessee, I got to give them credit. They put on a game day, you know, they put on a game day atmosphere that, when you get people that, you can go to the stadium by boat. I mean, come on, that's a pretty wild situation. And, to be honest, even though there's a lot of, um, you know, vitriol between these teams, for the most part, the Southeastern Conference is pretty good about not being, they don't get on each other. I mean, they'll talk smack and they'll talk trash, but if you go there and you're from another school and you're having some tailgating or doing whatever, you're not going to get bothered. I mean, people aren't going to harass you. Um, they're good folks. So I would, Georgia, Tennessee, man, you get a chance to go to a football game at either of those places, um, do it. I also throw in that an outlier here, and that's West Virginia. I mean, man, oh live! If you get that place, the Mountaineers have a lot of fun. They don't have professional sports in West Virginia, and that's their professional sport. All
Yeah,
right, we're in the night games now.
I was going to
Oh,
touch
go
on
ahead.
you talked about Rocky Top. They haven't been
Hmm.
playing it a lot when they played Georgia. Most
Hmm.
most points the Josh Heupel offense has scored against Georgia, 17. And in terms of West Virginia, that does bring up the backyard brawl is this week when they play Pitt.
Hmm. Yep.
It's not going to be marquee ranked versus ranked game, but that's a pure hatred rivalry right there. And if you want to see college football in some of its purest form, then turn on that backyard brawl between Pitt and West Virginia this weekend.
My late father was a graduate of Pitt, so I grew up knowing about the backyard brawl. It's 75 miles
Mm-hmm.
from Pittsburgh to Morgantown, West Virginia. And that might as well be a continent
Mm-hmm.
between each other. Um, they used to go down the Youghiogheny River by boat for the Pitt football team. We take a boat downriver to, um, to go and face them in Morgantown. It
Mm-hmm.
was, it is, it's crazy at both ends. It's crazy at the football stadium in Pittsburgh, which I used to, I will forever call Heinz Field. I don't care what they call it now. I think it's Athasher or something like
Yeah,
that. But
Accushare,
yeah,
something like that.
but you're right. The backyard brawl is fun. Um, it's fun to watch. Normally, it's it doesn't matter, whether West Virginia's up or Pitt's up. It doesn't matter because normally they play a very close game.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I think West Virginia lost to like Ohio or something last
did
week.
they?
They lost to a non P4 weird game they went on the road for. They
Mhm.
lost and they lost their starting running back, so they're definitely not at full strength. I think the spread
Ouch.
is
Yeah.
slightly over a touchdown, but it doesn't matter in this game. They say rivalry games throw the record out the window, especially for this one. You throw the record out the window.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Um, I think we both feel that this is a must-win game. I know you had a good column out about Billy Napier. I suggest if you haven't seen it, it's on our sports talk sites. By all means, check it out. Matt broke it down and did a really good job with it. And I'm not going to say it's a must-win for Florida, but man, um, if they don't win this game at LSU, and it's tough to win, we just talked about bucket list places. I will say again, bucket list LSU's, Baton Rouge is definitely a place you want to go and see a game. I don't know that if I would want to go there at night if I'm from an opposing team, but it's still fun. LSU, Florida, 7:30 ABC.
Well, you said that for the most part across the Southeastern Conference, people are pretty nice. It's pretty
Mm,
nice, Southern hospitality. LSU at night,
no,
they're the exception to the rule. If,
right,
if the rule, they are by all means the exception.
right.
And in terms of Billy Napier in Florida, calling it a must win feels like a stretch, but it kind of is a must win with what they have on their schedule and the way things go. And you and I talked about this off the air a little bit, but
Man,
the way last week went and what happened with South Florida for Florida, there is a scenario this week where everybody turns around and goes, "Hey, South Florida is that good." If South
mhm.
Florida, if they were to beat Miami or if they were to like
Hang
lose,
with them. Yeah.
yeah, in a one-score football game, and Florida were to beat LSU, now the script flips. Now it's
Hmm.
not, "Oh God, what was Billy doing?" All this other
Right.
stuff. You go, "Oh wait, South Florida really was that good, and we're going to
Hmm.
be just fine as well."
Hmm.
I don't foresee that playing out. Not at night, not at LSU, the number 3 team in the country. Man, they got a lot better on defense this offseason through the transfer portal. I mean, they are a much more complete team on defense. Their offensive line has some problems. LSU's does. And if Florida's going to win, that's because they've exposed those problems that LSU has on the offensive line. But Baton Rouge at night, it the talent profiles may match up similarly for Florida and LSU. But man, when you've got something close like that, and you've already got a favorite on one side, which is LSU,
Hmm.
the you add in that factor, it can factor in up to 4 or 5 points at that point with just how intimidating that place will be on Saturday.
Um, the only thing I'll say on this one is that I talked about Mario Cristobal making,
Hmm.
some bonehead decisions during games. Brian Kelly is equal to that. Um, I'm not saying LSU is going to lose to Florida at home. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, however, um, these are the kind of games that Brian Kelly has to win.
Hmm.
Absolutely must win for him. Um, he has not he's not reached the expectations that LSU fans have thought he would, or I'm quite sure that the athletic department thought. I mean, because they
which
paid him a lot of money to come down there. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, you say he hasn't reached expectations, which I think is a true statement. But
Mhm.
man, you talk about some high expectations. He reached the SEC championship game year one, produced
Right.
a Heisman winner year two. I know
Yep.
last year, neither of those things happened, but to already have those two things on your resume in year one and two, I know year three was probably a little bit of a letdown, but this year, you feel like you're right back on track.
I'm not saying that Brian Kelly's getting fired. I'm just saying that that Brian Kelly, if you're an LSU fan, you want to be there every year,
Mhm.
and they're playing fantastic football. They may, for all we know, they may be the best team in the country right now. But LSU's got talent. They've always had talent. Um, and I think the key here is Brian Kelly. Maybe Brian Kelly's finally finding out what it's like to coach in the SEC.
Yeah. And I will say they got better on special teams through the transfer portal too,
Yeah.
because they added a receiver in Barry Allen Brown,
Hmm.
who's a good receiver in his own respect.
Right.
But you want to talk about a guy that is a kick return specialist.
Hmm.
I think he housed 3 or 4 while he was at Kentucky over his couple
Hmm.
of years. And this guy is electric in the return game. So addition in multiple areas when they added to their receiver room this offseason.
Okay. Notre Dame, Texas A&M, 7:30, NBC and Peacock.
Yeah. So you said we talked about, kind of cautioning, saying that
Right.
Florida was in a must-win situation coming
Hmm.
into this week. Just the way it's a difficult task. Notre Dame's in a must-win situation. They cannot lose this football game. They do not have enough on the back end of that schedule to
Hmm.
make up for losing to Miami and Texas A&M, especially Texas A&M at home.
Hmm.
So they are in a must-win situation. I think they're going to get the win. I'm not really that concerned about Texas A&M. Their offense, I know people have been, raving about it. They really like what they see out of Marcel Reed, and they went out and they added receivers in the transfer portal. Casey Conception is the first one that comes to mind. But I go back to last year when
Hmm.
Marcel Reed first got the start, and they're playing LSU at home. And man, LSU, they just refuse to sit on a read option, and Marcel Reed tears them to shreds the entirety of that football game. And he runs up and down the field on LSU, and everybody's like, "Man, Texas A&M has their answer at quarterback." And then the next week they turned around, they went to South Carolina, and they put up a big old dud. So this is on the road. I'm not confident in Marcel Reed on the road. I'm not confident in this Texas A&M offense on the road. And you pair that with a defense that's looked suspect at best thus far for Texas A&M, and I think it may be a long night for them in South Bend on Saturday.
One other thing, the there is an intimidation factor going to play at Notre Dame. It's I don't know that there's any stadium in the country that where the fans are closer to the action
Michigan
than
State probably, but that's about it.
Michigan's close. I mean, but Notre Dame doesn't have the walls that Michigan does that keeps you. I mean,
I'm
their
talking about
place.
I'm talking
I'm
about
sorry.
Michigan State where their
Oh,
sideline, like
oh, oh! I see what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah,
their thing is
yeah.
pushed right up against those bleachers.
Right, right. So and then of course you've got touchdown Jesus, which by the
Hmm.
way happens to be about a block and a half away from the stadium, although it looks like it's right there
Yeah.
on the library wall. But um, Texas A&M's not going to be intimidated. They have played in bigger, in bigger and more and bigger and more intimidating places than Notre Dame. So it's going to be fun to watch. I mean,
Hmm.
it'll be a fun game to watch. South Carolina, Vanderbilt on the SEC network. Uh, what do you think? I mean, I think this might be Vanderbilt's opportunity to make a statement. What do you think?
It is. It definitely is. Vanderbilt's a very senior laden team. They've got a lot of grads, a lot of seniors. A group that's been together for what many would consider a long time, and they have a lot of experience under their belt in terms of the current college football landscape. But the one thing that I go back to is Vanderbilt is a very good football team. They're very well coached, and God, their world's better than they were a couple years ago when Clark Lee took over. But I struggle because Diego Pavia, and I feel like I've talked about this every time I've talked about Vanderbilt. But
Mhm.
man, he has went on every show he had the capability to in the offseason and just talked as much shit as he possibly could. And that goes true for when he was asked on a podcast this offseason, said, "Hey, is there a game? What game would you circle like, hey, I want to win, like we need to win this one. I want to win this one more
Mhm.
than any of the other ones." And he said South Carolina. And that's
Yeah.
continued this week. And I mean, they've just been like printing the bulletin board material for South Carolina. South Carolina probably can't play all the bulletin board material around the facilities because there's too much of it. Like
Mhm.
they just have a runtime of probably over 24 hours at this point, and they've seen it all. And I if there's it just feels like you've gone into the wrong place and you've poked the wrong bear coming into this year because South Carolina is that talented. I there's teams that I've circled. It's just kind of like, you haven't really been impressed with them the first couple of weeks. You're kind of waiting for them to pop because you still believe in what they're doing. Georgia falls into that category. South Carolina falls into that category for me because they have the talent roster and the ability to go out and beat, pretty much everybody in the country.
Mhm.
South Carolina does. Argument for the best offensive player and best defensive player in the
Mhm.
SEC, Lenore Sellers and Dylan Stewart. And Williams-Brice at night, you talk about places that are bucket list places. I'm not
Mhm.
sure if Williams-Brice necessarily is bucket list, but
Mhm.
man, they put on a show and they know how to
Yeah, they
make
do.
noise
Mhm.
on a Saturday night. And so
Yep.
when you're telling them that they're not intimidating and Dylan Stewart's just mad, Williams-Brice is loud, but it's just noise. It doesn't matter. You've done everything to make a fan base and a team angry, and you're going in to a place that, quite frankly, you shouldn't. You should just lay low because you're not in that spot. You're not Bama. You can't do this.
Mhm.
This isn't some superpower that's coming in here.
Mhm.
We know what we have, and I think they do know what they have. And I believe in Vanderbilt in terms of a season long. But I
Mhm.
feel like optically they have set themselves up for failure this weekend going into Williams-Brice Stadium.
Well, I don't think you want. I would agree with the fact that you just don't. You just don't do it, right? I'm not saying you do coach speak. You want to believe you can go and win every week. Okay, that I understand. That's great, fantastic. But just don't, talk such a much smack that you are absolutely almost disrespecting the team you're going to face because it will come back to haunt you
Mhm.
and possibly hurt you one way or the other. So,
I
not
mean,
a good plan.
they had a very popular YouTuber slash
Yeah,
streamer come in this week, break down the huddle. What he was breaking down was F South Carolina.
right.
And
Basically,
that
yeah,
goes everywhere. Like
right.
it's not getting mistaken. Millions and millions of views on that. It's not getting
Mhm.
mistaken. South Carolina has heard every single word of it this week.
And more. Real quick, let me just do some housekeeping here. Tonight, there's college football on you want to see. Indiana State is at Indiana. That game's at 6:30. That's on the Big Ten Network. Lisa Brimington and Jared Thomas on the call. Colgate is at Syracuse, 7 o'clock on the ACC Network. Doug Sherman on the call there with Forrest Conley. Colorado at Houston should be an entertaining game. That's on ESPN 7:30 is your kick. Armis Asharoff is on the call with Andre Ware as a color analyst. Kansas is at Arizona. That's a 9 o'clock game on Fox. Jason Benedetti and RG3 on that call. And New Mexico visits UCLA at the Rose Bowl, 10 p.m., Big Ten Network. Carlo Jimenez on the call. Brock Vereen is doing the color. One little editorial comment from me on that. I had occasion to do a number of UCLA and USC games uh, in my career. It pains me to see how bad UCLA is. God, they are horrible. But I guess
Hey,
Things go in cycles.
Joey Aguilar's dad, the quarterback at Tennessee, because you
Mm.
know that offseason
Right.
swap at UCLA and Tennessee made said, "Hey, Tennessee won the trade." He came out and said that this week in an interview. So,
Okay. Not going to argue on that
yeah.
one.
Um, and then I don't know if you're getting ready to wrap up, but I have three other games that just quick hits on.
All right, go. Give me three quick hits here.
Uh, Arkansas and Ole Miss. Ole Miss is kind of in a dangerous spot. They didn't look
Mm.
fantastic against Kentucky last week. Austin Simmons turned the ball over a couple times. He didn't look clean. He's going to need to clean that up because this is a good Arkansas team. The spread's under a touchdown for a reason. This is going to be a close football game, and Ole Miss needs to be careful because this is a spot where they can get got. And then moving on down the line, Duke and Tulane at 8 p.m. This
Mhm.
one probably going a little under the radar. It's a 1.5-point spread. Tulane is favored. But the storyline here, Darian Mensah, Duke's quarterback, formerly Tulane's quarterback last
Right.
year. He got paid $4 million to go play quarterback at the university at Duke University. This is a homecoming game for him in a way. And it's going to be that storyline alone is going to be interesting, aside from the fact that it should be a very good football game, closely contested. And then the last one, maybe it's a bit of a coming out party. It seems like he may have had it week one, but Minnesota travels to Cal on Saturday night, 10:30. That if you're up watching football at that point in time, this
Mhm.
should probably be the game that's on the main screen right here because Cal has a freshman quarterback. I'm going to butcher his name. It's Jaron Sawe. Uh, hang on. Let me. I'm going to get Saga Politele. Definitely mess that up. He's phenomenal, though. Really good. He played fantastic against Oregon State. I picked Cal in this game because of the quarterback and the scheduling dynamic of Minnesota, not only having to go on the road, but go on the road to the West Coast, play a late game. It can really mess with their psyche. You saw it last year where more talented teams would go out to the West Coast in that
Mhm.
Big Ten schedule, and they would struggle mightily simply because of the timing dynamic.
Um, one more bucket list thing. Um, Cal Stadium's not a fantastic stadium to go to.
Mhm.
Okay. However, little sidebar here, real quick. If you want to see San Francisco, with take your camera, because if you go on basically on any side of that stadium, it's got a perfect view. I don't know how that worked out. Perfect view from Berkeley right onto San Francisco. You can see the whole bridge, you can see everything, and I'm happy to see Cal playing well. I really am, because they took a lot of crap last year for coming over and not doing a lot. But Cal has had talented team, as has Stanford in the past. So yeah, absolutely 100%. Let's pop over and do some quick work on the National Football League.
Okay.
I picked a few for you,
All right.
and figured these are some games that could, they're not amazing, but they're interesting. All right, one of them's an amazing. New York and Dallas.
Mhm.
New York didn't play well last week, and Dallas played well in a loss. Um, is this the week that we see that we see the Jackson Dart with the Giants, or are they would that be something they wouldn't want to do on the road against Dallas?
I don't think they've pulled the trigger yet. I think they named Russell Wilson their official starter
They
coming.
did, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think this is going to be the trigger game for them to be like, hey, Jackson, get in there. We're
Yeah,
we're having a rough first half.
yeah. Do it
Um,
for us, Jackson. Yes.
it is going to be interesting to see. Everybody was ranting and raving about Dak Prescott's performance against Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
You go back and you look, he played well, but he also only threw for 188 yards. Like
Mm-hmm.
he didn't throw for a touchdown. George Pickens didn't get that involved. CeeDee Lamb had a bunch of drops. So for as good as people thought the Dallas offense looked at times, because it did look good
Yeah.
against Philadelphia in that first half, I'm going to need to see a little more consistency out of that offense against the Giants defense that isn't great yet.
This one at 4 o'clock is a Super Bowl rematch. Philadelphia at Kansas City. Um, you know, neither overly impressive in their opening game, but uh, you know, uh, the Chiefs going 0-2. that could be interesting if that happens, and that very much could happen.
Yeah, it could. It's going to help Kansas City that they're at home. I think
Hmm.
it may not be that far off for me to say that Kansas City probably has the best home field advantage in the NFL, the most like a college football atmosphere
It is, yeah.
in terms of the noise that they're able to produce and the problems that they can
Mhm.
give communication wise for a team coming in there.
Right.
Um, Philadelphia's offense needs to look much less one dimensional, and by one dimensional, I mean it was Jalen Hurts running the football against
Right.
Dallas
Hmm.
for the most part. You know, Saquon came in, he had 60 yards and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert had, he eclipsed 40 yards receiving, I believe.
Yeah.
AJ Brown had one catch. I think Devontae Smith had two.
Yeah.
Jahan Dotson provided their explosive against Dallas. So they need to be much more complete as an offensive unit if they're going to beat Kansas City.
Uh-huh.
And for Kansas City, this is a tough defensive test. They didn't luck out and get Jalen Carter, you know, sitting out this week. Jalen Carter's back, and as long as he doesn't spit on somebody else in the pregame,
Right.
he's
I
going
don't
to
think
play.
he's going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to play, and he is a difference maker on the
Hmm.
defensive front. Don't get it twisted. The people saw Philadelphia's defense again. They were very impressed with Dallas's offense off of last week's Thursday night football game.
Hmm.
But with Jalen Carter, this is a completely different unit for Philadelphia. They get a lot different pressure. They're much better in the run game on both sides. He changes the game for them defensively.
All right. A couple of quarterbacks who uh, 2 years ago were in college and now are facing off on um, Sunday Night Football. Michael Penix and your, I'm not going to say your, but you're close to, yeah, Atlanta Falcons, and Minnesota Vikings got JJ Hardy. Yeah.
Yep. A rematch of the 2023 national championship in terms of the quarterback.
Yeah. True.
So Penix wants his revenge. JJ McCarthy wants to keep doing what he's done since he
Hmm.
apparently has picked up football, and that's win football games. It was tough sledding for 3 quarters in Chicago for Minnesota last week.
Hmm.
But JJ McCarthy found it, right? He
Right.
he looked sped up for 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter came after he threw that pick six in the third. It was almost like, all right, we're good. So somehow throwing the pick six helped JJ, find his groove. I don't know how that works, but it did. And then on the flip side for Atlanta, you've got to find a way to win close football games because you've been finding ways to lose them left,
Hmm.
right, center. I mean, you can think of a way to lose a close football game. They found it. In terms of a head coaching matchup, Kevin O'Connell here, I think, outclasses Raheem Morris quite easily. I would also look to Drake London on Atlanta's side of the football. And is he healthy? Because if he's not and Darnell Mooney's still out, then you have a problem in that receiver room for Atlanta come Sunday night, especially with a Brian Flores-led defense.
So then you think things will be okay for uh, Atlanta if they can get off the schneid here in this situation. Because you're
If
right, they've
yeah,
lost a lot of games. The one thing that Raheem Morris is a defensive guy,
mhm,
um, and very good at it, but offenses have always been a problem with Raheem.
yeah. And I
So
mean, Michael Penix has done a good job since he's been
yeah,
there. But
absolutely.
you go back to the analogy in basketball of like you need to see one go through the hoop.
Yep.
Atlanta needs to win a close game to know that they can win close games.
Hmm.
I can use the same example because we talked about me and my
Hmm.
Boston Red Sox fandom. Man,
Sure.
they had an abysmal record in
Hmm.
one-run games at
Uh-huh.
the top half of this year,
Yeah.
and then they won one. And it was
Hmm.
like all of a sudden you started expecting them to win the one-run baseball games.
Right.
They won a tremendous run record-wise
Hmm.
of one-run games. Same thing for Atlanta here. Man, you've been on the wrong end so many times. Just get
Hmm.
one to go through. If you get one to go through, others will follow because it instills a
Right.
different level of confidence. And as much as you can get up to the podium and say, "Well, we believe," there's also a subconscious like when you're kind of in that scenario, you're like, "Oh no, here we go again." Like
Right.
here we go.
Somebody's going to
How
screw
are
up
we,
and do
yeah,
something.
how are we going to blow this one?
Hmm.
Is kind of the train of thought that goes. So they need this one on Sunday night.
Hmm. Well, Hopefully, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, they'll get it.
Um,
Any other before we get out of here? We got about 4 or 5 minutes left. Anything else that I left out on the Sunday NFL games, or going back to college, that you want to take a look at and think others should ponder looking at over the weekend, be
let's
worth
see.
their time?
Let's see. That is the Major League Baseball. That is
And by the
Monday.
way, that's you spoke about it. This is the big weekend of the Yankees and the Red Sox starting tonight.
It is. It is, and that's big for in terms of a divisional race because they're both neck and neck. I think the Yankees may be a half game above the Red Sox now after the Red Sox lost on Wednesday. The Yankees won last night. They were even going into last night. I think the
Hmm.
Yankees have taken a half game lead. But in terms of momentum, the Yankees kind of have it over the Red Sox right now. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Yankees can get the Red Sox off their back because the Red Sox are 8-2 against them this year.
Well, they lost 2 out of 3 against Detroit. I'm talking about the Yankees now
Yeah.
this week. So uh, what this ends up being is if Boston can win it, um, their hope would be to if they can win it. That would put them in position to finish ahead of them, which would give them home field advantage because it looks like these two teams are going to play each other in the first round of the playoffs.
hmm The two NFL games that I would say I would
Mhm.
touch on is
Okay.
Patriots go to Miami.
Okay.
The Patriots are a team that I've been pretty high on. I liked what they did in the offseason. Their holes felt a little more glaring when they played the Raiders.
Right.
But this is not a good Miami football team based off
Oh
what
my
they
God, it's terrible.
yeah, they're not good. So the Patriots, they are underdogs by a point and a half. The Patriots need to win this football game
Yeah.
in order for them to feel good about where their season's heading.
Hmm.
And then a similar one, and maybe it's not one that people have a lot of attention paid to,
Hmm.
but the Denver Broncos go to play the Indianapolis Colts, the
Hmm.
Peyton Manning special.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
I think this is the only reason I find this so intriguing is one, it's a 1.5 point spread.
Hmm.
So they're expecting a tight football game.
Hmm.
But you're also is the Daniel Jones you got last week the Daniel Jones that you're going to see for a majority of the season, or is it a one-off thing against a really bad Miami football team?
Hmm.
Expecting him to go down and score on every possession like he did against Miami is nonsense. It's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. But you want to see the same kind of throws, the same kind of decision making and poise from Daniel Jones that you saw last week against Miami, against what is one of the best defensive units in the National Football League in
Hmm.
Denver. And Denver has their own offensive questions too. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people weren't really inspired with what they did against Tennessee last week either.
Hmm.
So they have stuff to prove as well.
Well, I think Bo Nix in that system is just learning, and he's only going to get better. I
Year
think that system.
year two slump. I've said it a million times. Year two slump. This is year two for Bo
Yeah.
Nix.
Yeah.
It can happen to the
Yeah.
people that you least expect it to happen to. So
Yeah. But I think that personally, I think that Denver will come away with a win in that
mhm.
game. I
Yeah.
just happen to think that they are. Sean Payton is a good coach, and he's got his offense together. He's got some solid, as you said, and I agree, outstanding defense. So, let's see how that plays out. But it should be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
So plenty of outstanding college and pro football over the weekend, and divisional runs. We got the Red Sox and the Yankees playing each other.
Mhm.
So some if you're a sports fan over the weekend, you got baseball, you got football. It's Today would be a good day to go to the store and pick up all the stuff so you don't have to move tomorrow because it
Yeah.
starts early and goes late.
I will. I do want to leave. This is how I ended the show last night on Thursday
Okay.
night with Sean and all them
Yeah.
is, and hopefully this isn't the same crowd of people getting the same nonsense coming out of me. I do my best to tuck some biases away, but I do have a little favoritism towards the dogs. And I tell you what, man, over the 8 years, all I've heard out of Knoxville, Tennessee, is how ifs and buts were candy and nuts. They'd have a perfect
Hmm.
record against the dogs. Uh, in 2022 when they had the number one team in the country, you know why they lost to Georgia? They lost because of the rain. The rain is why they lost. They were down. They were down double digits headed into that second half when it started raining. But don't worry, that's why the rain stopped them. They said they were the only team that could beat them. And all I've heard and all this talk, man, they are one of the worst fan bases to see on Twitter because you'd think they won 8 national titles. Man, they don't shut up. And what I will say is that orange is ugly, and the Dogs will win again on Saturday.
Look, you're allowed to have a bias. We all have them, and I would think less of you if you did not have a bias. Um, we all, there wasn't a football team at USF when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
There is one now. I root for them. I'm not stupid. I do realize that it's going to be tough, but I'll be cheering that they win this weekend. And as I say, it's tough because I do like Mario Cristobal. I've known him since he was a player at the University of Miami, so it's tough to say that. But for one weekend out of the year, when your team plays somebody that you respect, he can win all the games he wants to after this weekend. Just give us this one, and then he can go ahead and do it. As a matter of fact, it would help us if he did. So we'll go from that standpoint. But don't apologize whenever you want to talk about it, because you're right. There are some fan bases that just drive you nuts because they haven't done anything, but they'll think of every possible excuse in the book to get out of it. It's like, come on,
you haven't beat us in 8 years, man. You could fool me thinking they have.
Well, there's a long run there between Georgia and Florida, where Georgia's just, they could have put 11 jerseys on the field and beat Florida.
Yep.
So it took a long time.
The other way around. In the early 2000s, when Urban was there against Mark Richt, man, it took them.
Spurrier had a good run against them too.
It took them rushing the field against Florida in that Urban Meyer football team to kind of like galvanize the troops and win that football game.
Yeah,
Mark Richt was tired of it. So, what is Tennessee going to rush the field if they score an opening drive touchdown? Maybe to get the boys going.
They'll hear a lot of Rocky Top. We can tell you that.
Yeah.
So, one quick Spurrier story, real quick. When they beat Tennessee at Neyland, he literally had the University of Florida band play Rocky Top, which pissed them off to no, They were really pissed at him. Mm-hmm. But Spurrier's thing with him was he was upset because Steve was all-state quarterback in Tennessee, and also all-state in baseball at Tennessee. And he didn't get recruited by Tennessee. And so there was never really a Florida-Tennessee rivalry. It was a Spurrier versus Tennessee rivalry.
Yeah.
So... And Peyton Manning never beat Steve Spurrier. So
listen, you can't spell citrus without UT.
That's a Spurrier line. Okay, buddy. All right, Matt, thanks a lot for everything. We're gonna have a fun weekend. I wish the Dogs well in Rocky Top, and we'll see how we end up on Monday. But have a great weekend. We hope that you enjoy your weekend. Absolutely. And Matt and I are gonna enjoy watching our teams play, as I'm sure you will enjoy watching yours. And we'll have come back and commiserate on Monday, or talk about how much fun we had watching our teams win, one thing or another, right? Absolutely. So until then, we'll see you guys. Take care and be well.